Welcome to the Keeping IT Real podcast. This podcast features honest and transparent conversations about what it takes to manage corporate technology and expenses today. Each episode, listen to true and personal stories from IT professionals who are working hard to make sure their business stays connected and competitive. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo, and let's meet our next guest. Today, I'm joined by Nitzan Eini, a Director of Enterprise Application Services and Operations. Nitzan is a skilled IT professional with extensive experience in leading global teams, optimizing infrastructure, and implementing innovative solutions to support organizational success. Nitzan, thanks for being on the podcast.
Nice to be here. Thank you for hosting.
Well, let's, you've listened to a few of these, so let's start from the very beginning. How did you get started in the world of technology and end up in the role that you're in now?
Well, I started long time ago. Actually, it was in the service. I served for a couple of years. I was a junior IT engineer, building applications. Back then it was with the Visual Basic, Delphi, and kind of spread across different areas, different business domains. It wasn't business again; it was in service. And then I just left to the business world. So that was my start right out of college.
So it was kind of you've been in tech and IT ever since.
Yes, I have, through my entire career.
Is it something that you've enjoyed and loved all this time? The passion has never really subsided.
Well, love and enjoyed. I loved it. Not sure about enjoyed.
That is fair.
It's the best. I think it's the best area. Best profession that matches my skills, my preferences. I don't think I could have a better, match with the career than with IT. It kind of combines all my powers, my skills, and I think it matches my personality well.
So what would you say your skills and personality are that makes you so confident in this being a good fit for you career-wise?
Well, I'm more of an analytical person. I like getting problems and trying to resolve them. I would never be a good salesperson, for example, working with people, trying that's something, for example, that's a skill that I don't have. So I'm better with technical challenges, with technical to learn new things. This is where my power is mostly, and I think IT is the great domain to be in for these kind of skills.
I love that. I love that. You were the first guest who is a Director of Enterprise Application Services and Operations. So I actually don't really know exactly what that is. Do you mind explaining and jumping into your role and talking about what makes up your role and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm, all businesses, all corporations today, definitely, IT is the backbone of every business. And regardless of of what industry you're working, you need strong IT team to support you. And my area is business or enterprise applications, which means applications that run the business, which are either financials, supply chain, HR, all of the business functions that run on these applications. And specifically, I'm in the area of support and operations, which means running those applications, making sure that the day-to-day support of the business works without disruptions, and that the business can gain the benefits that from the investment it made with those applications.
So that's kind of the macro level of it all. What does your day-to-day look like as the director? What does it look like? And it's probably like, I don't know, it's very different and dynamic every single day, but as best as possible, what does a day in the life of you look like?
Well, actually, it's both. It's kind of both. And I think especially in this area, when you're in support and operations, you need to keep both routine and both room for innovation and new initiatives. So we're in a way, we're kind of a utility part of the organization in some way, meaning we need to make sure that the applications are running, users can access them, integrations are running, system is up, no outages. And this requires a daily routine. It's like, we have daily stand-up meetings, weekly, all kinds of routines that we hold just to make sure that we don't deviate from normal. We have our business running, no disruptions, our users are happy, they have what they need to run their day-to-day activity. That's about 50%, roughly, we're of my routine as as the team leader, as the director of this team. And then we have our room for innovation and improvement. So that's where we're not only looking at how we make sure everything runs as designed or as planned, but how can we either make it better, how we align with the business goals, with business strategy, and look, to next year and make sure that we enable the business to meet these goals, and just new ideas from the team, how we can do things. We always try to think how we can make things different, and when something breaks, how we can make sure it doesn't break again. Okay, so that's part of our continuous improvement. Part.
And this is obviously something really fundamental to technology, right? Especially if you're a developer, you create something, you make it work, and then you continuously refine the code so it works better and better and better and better. And then you also look for different solutions overall that might be better than even the most refined initial solution. Of course, there's a lot of balancing that goes with this, especially when you're doing it as a team for a business, right? And resources can be really limited. And so, like you said, 50% is maintaining and 50% is innovating. Do you run into kind of, maybe the answer is probably yes, but limitations, and you're like, man, like I wish I had more resources or more things? And the follow-up question to that is, how do you then prioritize and decide what you're going to innovate on when you probably have so many ideas that you would want to improve? How do you know what to do first?
Yeah, absolutely. We run, with limited resources, whether these are, workforce or dollars. We don't have infinite, and we always need to kind of optimize and try to make the best of the resources that I have. And the idea is one, to plan, so there are several layers, right? First, you plan what you can, just run the business, what you need to do. If we didn't have any initiative, if we had nothing planned, what's the minimum required just to keep the lights on, kind of? And that's a given. These are resources that we cannot, if we just want to run the business, we cannot decrease the number of resources. And then we have, with what we have left, and ideally, if the business is going well and we have sufficient resources, then, we'll try to optimize those as investment or how we can make things better. And that's where we work with our stakeholders, with our partners in the business, trying to see, what are the ideas that we have? What is the roadmap? We build together a roadmap. The inputs are coming either from our customers, which in my case are internal customers. When I used to be consultant, I was working with external customers, now working with customers inside the business, but also sometimes from within, from our team, because sometimes when you're in the team, best what can be done better.
On that note, it sounds like you're going to get different requests from different places, and everyone has different ideas of what they think is most important. At the end of the day, you're going to have to say, we're going to go with this over this, and we might do that later. We'll figure that out. How do you decide when your numerous constituent stakeholders, internal customers, internal customers, if you will, are giving you just so many different requests, how do you then go, okay, these are the things we're going to do, and how do you communicate it so everyone's happy? You know what I mean?
Well, it requires communication, and we definitely have communication across, not, trying not to be in silos, trying to have communication across different verticals in the organization. We're using some techniques like a heat map, for example. So, for example, you want to build a plan of how, it's a board, right? You can have a map with all of the requests or all the ideas, and each idea gets a score. Can either based on how much value it adds and then how much effort it takes. And we will first, in the first ideas that we will, based on this heat map, we'll first address the ideas that brings us the most value with the minimum effort. This is that's it. It sounds basic, but it's not that basic to think about. And that's what we deliver. So we're trying to find first the low hanging fruits, and then we move on and rebuild this heat map continuously. So because sometimes after 3-4 months, some of the ideas there, they don't look as required or as important anymore. So you need to groom this heat map continuously.
Yeah, because when you're, you said it sounds simple, but it's definitely not as simple as it sounds, because how exactly do you determine how valuable it is, and in what time frame and effort too, right? So it's effort over, but it could be a low effort over a long period of time, or it could be low effort over a short period of time, or high effort over a long period of time, or high effort over a short period of time. Or the value could be really high, but only for like tomorrow. Or the value could be really, really high, but it takes like 3 years. There's a lot of balancing factors that you have to do here. And I think a lot of the times this is a really crucial part of business development, of tech development. And it isn't, I appreciate you kind of going into a technique and talking about it, because rather than going, we just need to be better, we just have to prioritize and find value. It's like, wow, that's hard. That's a very hard thing to do sometimes. So I appreciate you diving into that a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes simple tools or simple things are, you cannot, and you're right. There are so many factors and complexities, and it's never perfect. So I can, even when I say something has high value, probably, like you said, it's it's only for 1 month we're trying to factor everything and keep a simple model. Even if it's not perfect, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
This is generally good. Never try to be perfect. It's because going from good enough to perfect requires so much more effort that it's usually not worth the value that you gain from that.
Yeah. It's almost like the Pareto principle, right? That 20% leads to 80%, and then the last 80 leads to the 20. So it's like a lot more work to get to the final perfection point, that it's not proportionally productive.
It's amazing how this principle applies to so many things, right?
Yeah. It actually applies to how we do smart charging, right? On your phone. It's like my iPhone stops charging at 80% in the middle of the night, and then does the last 20%. I actually just was talking about this yesterday with a friend, in the hours of the night where electricity is the least. So it's the most efficient use of it, because when ions are coming in, it's they told me it was like a parking lot, right? When it's empty, it's very easy for the ion to find a place to go. But when it's 80% full, you got to really focus to find where that open parking spot is. So the last 20% is way less efficient in filling up than the first 80. And you apply that to real life. It's just everywhere. It's everywhere. So it's cool.
Electric vehicles, they behave the same way. They plateau after 80%. So this principle is very prevalent.
Like you said, one of your powers, which I love saying powers and domain. I think that sounds a really cool way to talk about IT and tech. That one of your powers is problem solving and looking at challenges and not being intimidated, but using what you know to solve it. What are sort of the challenges that you're facing in your current situation right now, and how are you looking to tackle them?
So I would say the main challenge currently that I have, is how to align myself with growth and scalability of my current organization. Okay, where right now, well, we have aspirations for growth, and we need to set ourselves up for this trajectory, for growth trajectory, and this is something that it affects across the board. All my goals, my teams, the technology that we support. This is the biggest challenge.
Well, how are you looking to tackle it? What is your kind of way to figure this out?
Yeah. So, well, the I think it's mainly to think big. Try to think try to visualize what it would be like 2-3 years from today. Try to envision where we think we're going, and do the tools that we currently have, and I'm talking about business application. Do they support larger scale? Because it's very different. An organization of 100 people versus 1,000 people versus 10,000 people. These are different operations. You need to set yourself up differently to support these scales, and both in terms of our processes, in terms of getting ourselves, efficient. Because for a big organization, you cannot just call a person. You have turnover of people in the team that you need to consider. You need to train new people. You need to build procedures that are supportive of bigger scale. So these are the things that I'm mostly focused on the last year or more.
And you're saying, you got to plan, however fast or slow a company scales, you got to think in terms of that time frame, right? When you hit that a certain number, you got to change the way you do it. How do you keep up with technology is changing so fast? How can you plan 2 or 3 years ahead? What's the research you do, the studying you do? Where do you go to learn to be able to be like, obviously you have to constantly groom it like you do with a heat map because things do change over time, but how do you plan with confidence, but also with flexibility, knowing things will change?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have no idea what is going to be the technology 4 years from today. I'm still planning. The planning is at the level of is more strategic level and mindset. We need to make sure, regardless of tools, we'll need to find the best technologies or the right technology that supports this these goals or this strategy. But we cannot know. Yeah, things change so fast, so rapidly that we don't know exactly what tools or what would they look like even in a year from today. In some areas. So and how I find information. So the best source is usually colleagues. In even in my organization, we have so much knowledge around from different people, and that can be shared, and ideas that I can get from people in my own organization just by by networking. That would be the first source. And of course, there are also outside, external sources. We work with a lot of vendors that have their own practices, conferences, continuous education. These are all sources to stay up to date with with our ever evolving technology world.
Would you say that and it's kind of a softball question. IT and tech is about continuous improvement. It also is about continuous learning, right? To be able to continuously improve. Do you consider yourself an avid learner? Someone who in free time is like, I just want to learn more?
Yeah, I'm almost always, in the process of learning something or doing a course. It can be either IT, but not only IT. It's not necessarily in my professional area.
Yeah, well, it's a weird deviation, and usually this comes at the beginning of the conversation, but I am curious because I do believe learning across disciplines helps other disciplines in general. What are your interests outside of IT and tech? What are the other things that you like to pursue and fill your life?
Well, I'm a musician too. I like playing, guitar. I'm a guitarist. This is my passion.
Nice.
I like scuba diving. I'm a dive master. I do meditation and yoga. So all kinds of things outside of the IT world that I like doing in my spare time.
That's cool. Also, just spread out across so many different things. Music,
yeah,
diving.
And even in music, you can learn all the time. I will never be able in my lifetime to be a master in music. So there's always something that you can.
And I think this is a really cool mindset to get to. And when you mentioned meditation and yoga and essentially mindfulness, I see that you understand this. It's about enjoying the process of growing and learning. And if you are only wanting the end result, you're not enjoy what you're going through, then it's not the best, because it might take forever and it might never happen. And so just to love what you do and be able to celebrate the progress, I think getting to that point in your mentality is really good for your self joy and happiness and fulfillment in general. So I appreciate you kind of bringing that up and reminding me to enjoy just the act of doing and improving.
There is the principle in, it's a Buddhist principle of, and I'm not a Buddhist, but it's a principle that I really like, of the impermanence, and I think that applies to RT too. Everything always changes. Nothing stays the same. Change is inevitable, right? And the same principle applies also, in a way, to technology. So that's maybe how I marry these two worlds.
Yeah, exactly. And I, like I said before, like finding a way for things across disciplines to relate to each other helps all practices, right? So back to scalability and growth. In order to tackle any challenge, sometimes there are challenges that are too big for us to overcome because we don't have the experience or the skills. Like if you've never played piano before, you can't just go jump and play a Beethoven piece, the most complex Beethoven piece you have to build up, right? So in order for you to attack a challenge like growth and scalability, you have to have some sort of experience before to at least give you some idea of how to tackle it. What are some things that you've learned throughout your career to be able to look at your current challenge and go, okay, I feel confident. This is what I need to do to start tackling this challenge?
Okay. A good question. Well, I think the most important thing is to have the right people around you. Find the best people you can, build the team, the best team that you can, people with experience, and then gradually build the expertise and tackle a big challenge, because you cannot, like you said, you need to break it down to smaller chunks, to smaller pieces that are more manageable. And I think there's nothing that can replace a really good team. Knowledge can be built. You can always gain more knowledge, but attitude, resilience, and let's say curiosity and an ability to solve things and desire to solve things. These are things that are, important when you have the right people. You can do anything, within our line of business.
Yeah, within your domain. And yes, right, because the cool thing about having a team is there's no way that you can know everything or do everything, but
I'd rather been trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like, I like to sometimes to get into the details, but I know, and especially where my strengths are, some areas are more, for example, my background, I'm more in I came from the supply chain. applications. So this is where my stronger experience, let's say. But and yet, I need to be able to not necessarily know everything but trust the right people that they will be able to solve and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So to feel comfortable with what we're being applying, the solutions that we're going to apply.
So, your role as a director, and obviously you started as a contributor, and now you kind of look at a team, or you look at a whole sort of part of a company. The skill set there naturally shifts, right? And you have to develop skills to be able to see your team, find the right team, and then maximize your team's potential. Like you said, ask the right questions, right, as part of your job. I want you to dive into that just a little bit. Like, what are the ways you have learned to really get out of your team what you need to be able to make the team successful? What are the questions you ask? What are the, how do you make your stand-ups productive? How do you make your meetings productive so that you know that your team is doing what needs to be done?
Well, it depends on the situation, but I would usually, ask, like, what are you suggesting? This is the first question, because I think the best solution will not necessarily come from me. I don't want to offer the solution, and it's easier to get a buy-in from a person when they come up with a solution. So usually, what I would encourage is, IT analysts, for example, or what do you suggest? What are you suggesting? Then why are you suggesting that? Did you think about different cases, different scenarios? Can something break if we implement this? We're introducing a new feature, right? Did you make sure that it didn't break something else that is currently working? So, what are the risks, right? What are the risks? So that, in the same, how much effort? What if we don't do anything? These are kind of questions that they're applicable, to almost anything. And again, in some areas, if I know more, I can probably drill down to more details. But I don't think this is critical to do that. It's beneficial, but not critical.
Yeah, and that's I really appreciate that answer. Because like you said, the whole thing about buy-in, when you get the person who is doing it to come to the conclusion on their own, then when it's time for them to do it, they have full knowledge of what they need to do. They fully understand how to do it. And then if they don't, they know the questions they need to ask to get the resources they need. If you just go, this is the right answer, you didn't give them the time to come to that. So there's a shock. Yes. Yeah, they don't get to that point. And so I think and then it also leads to your understanding if you weren't an expert in the first place about it. If you don't have an answer, then suddenly you know more, right? And so I think there's a beautiful thing there as a director to know the right questions.
Yeah, I don't think pushing, for unless these are, really, exceptions.
Sure.
Pushing, and this is also something you need to know, right? Like exceptional cases where are we really doing the right thing? And when you have red flags, you need to know that this is a red flag and this is not. But these are very rare. I don't have a lot of these. Most people know what they do, typically, and they're professionals. It's at least in my organization, but pushing to specific solutions that are not necessarily what your team would recommend, that doesn't always end up good. And yeah. I'm trying to listen first before
exactly
never dictate. Yeah,
exactly. Listen first. I was going to say you have to be a good listener, right? So you've had a good long career. What are some of the things that you have learned that have still kept with you today? And they can come from failures, they can come from successes, they can come from experiences. Just what are some of the greatest things you've learned for yourself?
Well, first, I mentioned that earlier. It's that everything changes all the time. That's, I think, the most. So even when things look, they'll never change. They will, and some other things will never change. People are people. People behave. They have the same aspirations, same behavior, similar behaviors. So some other things are similar across different organizations, companies, roles. I think diversifying your experience is good. It's something that I used to be. For example, I used to start in a consulting firm. I was in service. I was in other, in business, different industries, and it's not only good for your experience and different point of view to give you a better a spectrum or overview of what you can what you can do, but it's good for it's more interesting. Makes it more interesting to see different teams, different organizations. I think that's
I will add on to that part at the end too. It's also humbling to know how much there is to know. I also think that you get to bring in unique perspectives that other people couldn't bring if you have knowledge outside of the domain as well. So there's a lot to diversifying in general. I think diversification in general, in everything, is very, very, very good. And I love how a running theme in our conversation is the fact that what we say for IT and tech can apply to so many things, and so many things are consistent across a lot of life. And I think that's a really beautiful thing to come to a conclusion to, for sure. Moving forward now, we looked back, some of your greatest lessons. Moving forward, for both personally, and we talked about it with business too a little bit, but maybe you have an additional answer. What are your biggest priorities personally, and what are your biggest priorities other than growth and scalability planning for the business? And if there's nothing additional there, just personal priorities and growth.
Well, I have enough experience I've been in this business enough, so I think, try and get a new generation to join up. This is something, by the way, that I'm a little bit, I noticed when that changed a lot compared to when I started, for example. When I started 20, 30 years ago, IT people were the young generation in the organization. And I don't know, recently, the last organizations that I've been with, there is no younger, or not enough. I would say there is but there's not enough young generation. And I think this is something that I would be happy, if it changed, to see, the next generation coming and becoming, the next, the future experts. Other than that, like I said, continue with my current role, support my organization, enjoy life outside of work.
Good answer. Would you ever consider being like some sort of teacher or mentor or guide? Because you had mentioned, you want to see more of the younger generation. Personally, I think you are someone with a lot of wisdom and knowledge, two different things. Have you ever considered, I think you would be good at it, have you ever been considered like being in a role where you can impart what you know to other people?
No, I didn't. Well, I've never thought of being a teacher. I mean, I don't know if I'm qualified for that.
Well, what I will say then to that is just, I have learned a lot from this conversation from you about tech, about IT, but also just about life in general and thinking bigger. And so even in this moment, for me, in the last 37 minutes, I've felt like I have learned from you. So qualified or not, you did do that. So no qualification can change what has been done. To close, since we're almost at time, any final thoughts from you that you didn't get to share that you just kind of want to put out there for the audience?
Our business, I think, what I like about our business is that, our IT as IT is, this is I think we're the best enablers of even economy, I would say, today, because, my experience in organization, regardless of what they are making, of what line of business, there are a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, how we can run the business. It's all talk until you implement it with IT. Yeah. Everything is just, ideas, but IT is the enabler, is where things really materialize. And I think we need to think about it this way. Our colleagues and understand this, and I'm very happy that I'm part of this. This was my career path.
No, you are wise beyond belief to me. So this was an awesome conversation. Truly, I'm very grateful for you to take the time to do this with me. And I hope everyone who listens gets something out of it too. Nitzan, I just wanted to say thank you for your time, for your expertise, and thank you for coming on. Yeah, thank you. And take care.
Take care.
We hope you enjoyed this Keeping IT Real episode, and thank you for listening. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. This podcast is all about celebrating and connecting professional heroes who work hard at IT every day. To continue the conversation and learn how VCOM can help you better buy, manage, and pay for your technology, visit us at vcomsolutions.com. Until next time.